All right, well, March Madness starting with a bang. Siena was right there. Siena was right there, and they weren't able to hold on. They led this game by, I think it was 15 at the half. It was the biggest deficit Duke had all year long. Siena played just 5 guys in the game, and they were right there. Duke held on to win, though. Oh, my goodness. Everybody on the East Coast, at least the Northeast Coast, was wondering and hoping if Siena was going to get it done. It was so close. Doty was fantastic. It seemed like the first half they couldn't miss a 3. Duke couldn't make one. Jerry McNamara, the defense was really fantastic, especially that first half. But when it came right down to it, it was obviously the talent of Duke that did it. Final score 71-65. Duke winning that game over Siena. Boy, just a remarkable game. Let's take a look at some of the scores as we take a look here. Just get you caught up. Wow. Amazing. Let's see. 71-65, Duke holds on. Siena really did a great job. It was funny at halftime. They came out and said, well, we thought this was going to be a cakewalk. Turned out it wasn't a cakewalk. Not a cakewalk at all. But give a lot of credit to the Siena Saints. They came out and nobody expected them to be there. Nobody expected them to have that kind of a first half, to have that kind of a game against the number 1 team. Most people, I don't know, maybe you say Arizona, but a lot of people thought Duke was the number 1 team. And nobody thought Siena was going to keep it that close. We're going to take a look at some of the other 16 seeds that defeated number 1 seeds. This could have been the number 1 victory ever for a 16 over a 1. Gavin Doty was fantastic today, 21 points for Siena. Cameron Boozer, 22 and 13 boards. Very quiet. A quiet 22 and 13. That's really what that was. A very quiet 22 and 13 for Boozer. But when you're the number 1 seed, you've got to win the games that you need to win. Especially when you thought it was going to be a cakewalk and Siena took you right to the end. Siena had a 15-point lead. Couldn't hold on. But boy, Siena played great. They missed about 5 baskets inside the paint. They missed about 5 layups or dunks. So could that have been the difference? Who knows? But Jerry McNamara now is going to be probably the coach of a top program, perhaps Syracuse very soon. We'll see. But what a season they had with Siena. Fantastic. Let's take a look at some of the other scores. The early games. High Point also, that's probably the big upset so far, defeating Wisconsin 83-82. Nebraska got by Troy, no problem. It was Louisville 83, South Florida 79. First game of the day was a really fun one, TCU holding on to beat Ohio State. That was a game that TCU led big in the first half. Ohio State came back. Really a quiet day for Ohio State. Bruce Thornton, very quiet. But punch was fantastic for TCU. And they held that. It was their defensive intensity in the first half that stifled Ohio State. And so TCU came back to win 66-64, holding on and taking a look at some of the games that are going on right now. Michigan State leading North Dakota State first half, late first half. Also late first, Arkansas with a 14-point lead over Hawaii. Vanderbilt late in the game, 8-point lead over McNeese State. And then tonight, some of the other action coming up. So a really great start, if you ask me. The TCU game was exciting. Siena, boy, that's the one that has people thinking, wow, they They almost had it, and people were really excited about Siena. They just weren't able to hold on, but that's okay. That's what March Madness is all about. I know a lot of you are homesick today. Homesick today watching this slate of basketball games and then the games tomorrow as well. It's certainly that time of year when that flu bug hits and everybody comes up sick, surprisingly, this time of year. It's amazing. But we're going to have some more great basketball tonight, some more great basketball tomorrow. Before today, these are the two 16s defeating ones, and we talked about this the other day. FDU over Purdue back in 2023, and then in 2018, UMBC defeating Virginia, shocking Virginia. We talked about these in an episode earlier this week. This Siena game would have been right here with that. It would have been one of the top 3 upsets, maybe not the number 1, because I think Siena was a better team, maybe better than being a 16 seed, having a great year out of the MAC conference, solid, really solid team. So I don't think it would have been the number 1 upset ever, but it would have been one of the top 3 along with FDU and UMBC. Nonetheless, Duke holds on to win. We could be seeing a Duke St. John's matchup. That could be a really exciting one, but we'll have to see. We'll see in the next week what transpires if that happens. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as we get you caught up on all the college basketball. But today I want to talk also about this story in spring training, because I hear some people saying, well, my team is having a great spring, we're going to have a great year. Or my team has had a poor spring, we're going to have a terrible season. This is credit to Michael Wolverton over at ESPN. And I wanted to take a look at some of the spring training records and see how that corresponds to the regular season. Because I see way too many baseball fans getting excited in the spring or getting despondent in the spring. Because the truth is, it has very little correlation. Very little correlation. Let's take a look here. Spring training records, the last 30 years. You can see some of the best records ever. The 97 Marlins had an outstanding record, 26-5 in the spring. Boston Red Sox in 98, 20-8. But you can see how some of these teams ended up doing in the regular season. So take a look, third down here, Kansas City. They had a spring training 22-9. Wow, everybody was excited. This is going to be our year. They came out and won only 64 games that season. If you look a little bit further down, the Los Angeles Dodgers in 99, 21-9. Ooh, they had a great spring. Regular season, they were under 500, only winning 77 ball games. And on and on and on. Baltimore in 2002, they were 20-9. They only won 67 games in the regular season. So there really is no correlation. Yes, there's some outliers. You can see Oakland in Arizona. Oakland in 2001 had a great spring. They won 102 games. Arizona in 99, they won 100 games. But it's all over the board. Look down here. The Detroit Tigers, 1996. They won 2 out of every three spring training games. Wow, this is our year. This is our year, Tiger fans were saying. They only won 53 games in the regular season. So the point of the matter is, spring training record means nothing. Absolutely nothing. Let's take a look at it this way. The last 7 years, let's look at the spring training record. The worst spring training record in the last 7 years. Montreal, Toronto, Cincinnati, Florida. These teams won 8-9 games in the spring. And you can see sometimes it corresponded, sometimes it didn't. So if you take a look, San Francisco Giants in 2001, they were 9-21 in spring training. Yet in the regular season, they won 90 games, 90-72. So both sides, it's the same story. Spring training record means nothing, especially for players. I hear that a lot. So and so has had a great spring. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be lined up for a great season. Sometimes pitchers are just out there working on things. They're working on pitches in certain counts. They're working on different types of pitches that they might want to build into their repertoire during the season. And that's what the spring is all about. And yet, some prognosticators will look at the spring training stats and automatically draw that correlation. Not always true. Sometimes a guy will have a great spring and then he won't even be in the lineup when the regular season comes, or vice versa. Or you'll have somebody who will have a terrible spring, but it doesn't really matter because they know they're going to be slotted in the lineup and they know they're going to be there once the regular season begins. So don't ever get too caught up with spring training, whether it be by a player or whether it be a team. Here's the verdict on this. 7 of the top 15 spring teams finished below 500 in the regular season. So in other words, they had great spring trainings and then they finished below 500. They had lousy seasons, so it means nothing. The worst major league record in the past 60 years was the 96 Tigers I talked about. They were 20-10, and they came out in the regular season and only won 53 games. Meanwhile, you had the 2001 Mariners. They were finished tied for the best record ever, 116-46, but you wouldn't have known it in the spring. You wouldn't have known it because they were 13-19 in the spring. So you can't judge it just by that. The 1998 Yankees, which we have a great feature coming up here on the channel next week. Make sure to subscribe so you get it. The 98 Yankees, many baseball fans and historians consider them one of, if not the best team of all time. But they were only 15-12 in the spring. And that was behind a couple teams in their division, Baltimore and Boston. Texas was also better that spring. So it did not foretell what was coming for the Yankees that season. Spring training record means virtually nothing. Virtually nothing. And that's important to remember because some people get so caught up in it and it means virtually nothing. Okay. So that's important to remember. Next thing we're going to touch on today, before we get to our sportscasting tip of the day, there was a Polymarket deal. You probably saw it. I'm going to pull up this article here for you. Major League Baseball reached an agreement with Polymarket and the FCC. So this means this is going to be the place that Major League Baseball, that you can wager on Major League Baseball. And I don't think it's a great thing for those of you that are big gamblers. Obviously, you've loved the past decade, but Major League Baseball entering into the prediction market space. Today, they named Polymarket as the official prediction market exchange and reached an agreement with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Polymarket is the only one now that can use Major League Baseball marks and logos on the platform, as well as official data. One of the comments they said here was that they're going to curtail certain bets that could have threats to the integrity. So if there's like a bet, will the first pitch be a ball or a strike? They're going to curtail those just in case, because they want to maintain the integrity. It's kind of interesting that you're talking about the integrity of the games at all when you're jumping so knee deep, waist deep, chin deep into sports gambling, as all the leagues are. So it's one of those things. Obviously, yes, prediction markets are extremely popular. Rob Manfred said, the fact that you have a federal regulatory scheme makes our life a lot easier, as opposed to, take, for example, sports betting where you're going state by state. Yes, that's true. Whether it's autonomous vehicles, whatever it is, having one giant framework is usually going to be better for clarity and for industry as a whole. But a lot of people are unhappy with this. Major League Baseball joined the NHL, MLS, UFC as U.S. sports leagues that have partnerships in the prediction market space. So as part of its partnership, Major League Baseball and Polymarket established an integrity framework, including restrictions on markets vulnerable to manipulation. That's what I mentioned when I talked about some of those markets where they could be fixed. And if you saw the video we did a couple weeks ago about sports being rigged, a lot of sports fans do think they are rigged. I don't. And you saw the reasons why I said that. But a lot of sports fans do. But baseball just wants to get in the game. And they say also they want to make sure that they're on top of it with the regulation. It's going to be interesting to see. All right, before we finish up today's live stream, let's talk about today's sportscasting tip of the day. This is one that I hear a lot, also hear it a lot in the business world. When you'll hear and by the way, subscribe to the channel. When you hear a broadcaster or a coach or a player or someone doing an interview or being interviewed, when you hear them say, look, a lot of times they'll ask a question and the first thing the person will say is, look, we wanted to come out today and do this or that. Look, we thought we were going to play better than we did. It's kind of a crutch word, really just looking for a moment to catch your thoughts is really what it comes down to. But I've been around personalities in business and in sports that use that a lot. And at first it catches your attention when they say, look, it kind of brings you in and you're waiting. And then they just go on and tell you some normal sentence that means nothing. So it's just a crutch word. It's like right or ah, or sort of, or kind of, or so. It's when they start a question with look. Well, Rick, how did you play today? Look, I tried to do a great live stream. I tried to do a nice show. Why can't I just answer it that way without saying look? So that's my sportscasting tidbit of the day. If you want to stand out, get rid of those crutch words. Get rid of them. And also, it always comes up now. A couple weeks ago, you saw Pat Riley, former coach of the Lakers, Knicks, Heat, and he said he liked the look when coaches would be on the sidelines with a suit, with a tie. And I agreed with him. I think this look with sneakers and a suit is terrible. It looks terrible. I know they're more comfortable. Nobody's comfortable in dress shoes. At least I'm not. I've never been. But when you wear a suit and a tie and you look sharp head to toe, why do you ruin it by not looking sharp? You only look sharp head to ankle. And then below the ankle, you've got sneakers on. I know you've got the deals with the companies and whatever. But it looks sloppy to me. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you think sneakers with a suit is a bad look? I think it's a bad look. Maybe you'll disagree with me, but I just think sneakers with a suit is a bad look. All right, before we get out of here, let's take a look at some of the up-to-date scores. Okay. Let's see here. Michigan State, 20-point lead at the half over North Dakota State. Arkansas, big lead over Hawaii at the half. tonight. North Carolina, VCU, Michigan and Howard at 7:10 p.m. And again, some of the earlier games, Vanderbilt got by McNeese State. Duke, 6-point win over Siena, as we talked about at the top. Big win for Nebraska over Troy. High Point so far with the big upset of the day. High Point with that victory, defeating Wisconsin. Louisville 83-79 over South Florida. And that first game of the day, TCU getting by Ohio State by a bucket. That was a good game. Fun game. Really fun game. But I think it was a nice start to the tournament. Really nice start to the tournament. A lot more coming up tonight. A lot more coming up tomorrow. And obviously, the first 4 days are always exciting. First 4 days are great because you get a lot of action. You usually get some upsets. We saw High Point so far today. Siena almost. It was close. It was close. But right now is kind of like the in-between. You can grab something to eat, and then you come back for the night games. But there's a lot going on. Also, spring training. We talked about spring training in baseball. The Masters coming up in a couple weeks. Just a lot going on right now. Thanks for being here today on this live stream. Make sure to join us here on the Sportscasters Club YouTube program. If we haven't met before, my name is Rick. Nice to meet you today. Let's see what upsets we have for tonight. So long. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye.